Spotlight. Today we have a returning guest, Jordan Sather. Jordan is the creator and owner of his YouTube channel, Destroying the Illusion. You can also find him on Twitter at Jordan_Sather_ or go directly to his website, jordansather.com. And I am very happy to have Jordan back on the X22 Report Spotlight. Jordan, welcome to the Spotlight.
Always a pleasure to be on with you, Dave. Always a pleasure.
Hey, thanks for coming back. And let's just start off with what Trump just did. He just created the Space Force. Now, a lot of people are thinking to themselves, why do we need a Space Force? Why did he go ahead and create a Space Force? And I wanted to get your take on why you think Trump went ahead and created it. Why do we need it? And why did he do it right now?
Right. So first, getting into the topic of space. I mean, this is such a deep topic that it's very hard to grasp sort of a big picture of, and it can take years to listen to different testimonies and see different evidence to put a big picture together. But when it comes to space, I divvy it up personally into public space and private space when I try to explain this to people. So in the public space, we've had NASA, we've had a few other these companies, Blue Origins and SpaceX, and they've been doing their thing with rockets for 50, 60 years or so. And that's what's told to us in the public domain, what's admitted. Then there's a whole other subsect of space research, and this is the rabbit hole. This is what, of course, they don't give you in the authoritarian sources and whatnot, and that's private space. And that's looking at what have they hidden from us in terms of technologies, in terms of research and developments, in terms of money taken from budgets into certain secret projects. And you can, spend almost your whole life trying to piece together this stuff because it's such a convoluted and classified picture. But in terms of private space, you can at least track it back to even as far back, surprisingly, as World War II. And surprisingly, during this era, we had, of course, Nikola Tesla. Many people are at least heard of the name, semi-familiar with, and his research into different radiant energies and even his dynamic theories of gravity. And there's also other scientists in the 30s and 40s in that time frame that were, like T. Townsend Brown, working on how to make metal discs essentially levitate via electrostatic charge into the metallic discs. And he termed the idea of electrogravitics. He called it anti-gravity, I guess is the a lot of people call it, but that's not really a technical term. He was utilizing electricity to sort of counteract gravity and be able to not use Bernoulli's principle to make something fly. I mean, this is absolutely incredible. And he was doing this all the way back in the 40s. His research ended up getting classified for national security reasons, they say, and then that was that. But there were others too. And I mean, this research was all brought into these particular projects that the corporations owned with the intelligence military industrial complex apparatus. Now, throughout the 50s and 60s, once the, deep state or military industrial complex really began realizing what was possible in terms of what these scientists on Earth were doing and the classification of their work, of course, Nikola Tesla's classification of his work, I think a lot of people know was done by President Trump's uncle, John G. Trump, or at least he went through a few of the papers on behalf of the FBI. But a lot of this just got funneled into the projects in the 50s and 60s. They said, what can we do with this? And how are we going to start building it out? So that's about when a lot of the money started getting siphoning from the black projects. In the 80s, there was a report popularized called the Spinney Report, written by a man who worked in the Pentagon named Franklin Spinney. And they tried to sort of silence him and stifle him, but he was detailing how much waste there was in the Pentagon, how many millions and billions of dollars, billions and billions, as the president likes to say, of dollars had gone from Pentagon budgets into who knows where. They call it misadjustments, or what did Donald Rumsfeld call it the day before 9/11? Unaccounted for funds, or whatever the case. And it really began back then. So Franklin Spinney detailed this in the 80s. His report became popularized, but of course, the media never followed through with it, and it just sort of went nowhere and forgotten about for years and years. And then come, of course, Donald Rumsfeld the day before 9/11. He admitted to that $2.3 trillion number. So it looks like it grew from the maybe tens of billions, hundreds of billions in the 80s, up to $2.3 trillion that they don't know what came into the Pentagon, what went out of the Pentagon. And what people have to understand is the Pentagon's never been audited, at least before 2018. Let me say that. Before President Trump's administration and he got in there, it had never, ever been audited, ever. And you think that's $500 billion a year now that, who knows? But anyway, Donald Rumsfeld, $2.3 trillion. Then up to these days, there's estimates by Inspector General reports from the DOD and other independent investigators that put that number to be 10 to 20 trillion. Who knows? Like a big who knows. So there's so much in terms of research and development and what they've done, how they've kept it secret for decades and decades, that now, since we have President Trump into office, the person that's outside the establishment, not Hillary Clinton, he is finding a way for the white hats, the good guys, the patriots to, number one, gain control of these projects because they're so classified. I mean, it even goes beyond the special access programs, the SAPs, into unacknowledged special access programs, USAPs, where the people who are in these particular programs, whether they be intelligence officers or corporate guys, or whatever the case, they don't tell anybody. It is such a select few they tell, only the ones read in on, and then nobody else knows, and they'll have billions of dollars at their disposal to do what they want. And they just delegate out the research and the development of who knows, maybe saucer crafts, maybe floating black triangles that can shield themselves from inertia and move it, 100,000 miles an hour, go from here to Mars in minutes. I think that's possible. And I think, personally, my opinion, that's been done. So Trump and the Patriots are trying to gain control of these projects, figure out where the money's gone. They began the first ever audit of the Pentagon in 2018. They've been very quiet about it. Very few details have emerged about that. And I'm sure because, holy crap, if you figured out where the money went, what it actually went to, and the sciences they kept secret, people's minds would be blown and they'd be pretty pissed. So they have to be very careful with how they disclose a lot of these things. And the Space Force allows them to acquire this, whatever the Air Force has, whatever the NRO has as well. They've been sort of subsuming, taking in a lot of these different projects, acquiring them. And the Space Force allows them to control it and begin to disclose that very slowly to the public. And we are seeing it happen, in real time. The new Secretary of the Air Force, Barbara Barrett, who replaced a woman named Heather Wilson. Heather Wilson didn't want the Space Force. She was a staunch opponent to it, but now she's been replaced by Barbara Barrett, who's been around the aerospace industry. And she actually said in an article that was published back in December, a few months ago, that we need to basically declassify black space programs, like what's classified there, because people would really rally around the idea of a Space Force. And I think she said this at a Defense Forum event. It was reported on by military journals, and it sort of went unnoticed. But that's such a huge statement when you have the backstory of all of this that's been hidden. Is, wow, the Space Force is an avenue that they can begin doing that. And again, it's a very complicated process because with the idea of space and what's been hidden with, everything, technology and what's really out there with other life too, it's such a revolutionary idea. This is why through Q, the Trump administration basically said ETs are the highest classification, UFOs are of the highest classification, because it really does revolutionize and change our paradigms about technology, about science, about religion, about spirituality, about all of that industry even would be completely changed. So Space Force is a lot bigger than people realize, and I'm incredibly excited for it. I love when Trump says at every rally, Space Force. He's really trying to sort of legitimize the idea, not ridicule it like I think the media tried to do a year or two ago, but really make people believe in the seriousness of it. When we're actually seeing quite a few, I believe retired, there's a few retired military generals who are going around and publicly doing interviews and trying to build support, logically tell people without going into the sort of the hidden stuff so much, but say what they can say publicly about what's really possible with the Space Force and what we can do about it, because it needs to be taken seriously. And, it's going to bring in so much in the near future.
I just wanted to get your take on, you mentioned public space and private space. And public space, we have NASA, where we've been using the same rocket technology. It might have improved a little bit, but it seems that it really hasn't changed that much. Do you think that we have the ability to fly to the moon and to other places using other technology? I mean, do you think, I mean, we haven't been to the moon in since 70s? That was the last time. I mean, don't you think it's odd that
So they've said, so they've admitted,
well, yeah,
right?
I'm saying the public space, NASA and that we haven't been to the moon since the 70s. Now, what is that, 50 years or so?
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I mean, doesn't that sound a little ridiculous that we haven't been back?
Now, great question. Let's talk about NASA. So I often see on the internet people who just throw out statements like, oh, NASA's a hoax or NASA's a fraud or something like that. What you have to understand about NASA is there are many, many brilliant scientists and great people working for NASA or contracting for NASA. But the idea of compartmentalization is so important to understand. These scientists that work for them, they think they're at the top level. And this can go for any industry, across the board. People are thinking they're at the top level. They're thinking their education is the best that's out there and they're the most advanced and, this is all we can do. But they're not seeing the other picture that's held elsewhere. So NASA gives a lot of great information, great data, but it's difficult. They're not, of course, going to give you the full picture. And they've been used by the deep state to sort of sell the idea of, oh, this is the best that we've done to the public, while on the other hand, they keep so much secret. And absolutely, they're still using rocket technology. This is ancient. This is grandpa's technology. They're basically glorified bullets. A rocket is a big bullet where you're exploding something to thrust out the back, and you propel it forward, and they go, a few thousand miles an hour. Great. But through the use of basically electricity, that's it. It's that freaking simple. Electricity, call it plasma, if you will. Like I said, T. Townsend Brown was charging metal, crystalline material, discs, to make it levitate and go. And then there's also other researches, sciences, technologies out there where counter-rotating electromagnetic fields might be able to create sort of, call it a bubble in space-time or time-space, if you will, but it can shield inertia. So if you take different superconductive fluids, whether it be mercury, possibly even a structured or a charged water, you can charge that and counter-rotate electromagnetic fields and create both what you would call over unity electricity or zero-point energy and propulsion at the same time in the same set. You could look into the Searle magnetic device, Searle effect generator from Professor John Searle, and there's other devices out there as well. I could go off and list, but this is a lot of research. It's been kept in projects, off the books, out of the hands of the mainstream scientists, if you will. And the public's been sold that rockets are the best thing. We still can't, advance past Bernoulli's principle, which the Wright brothers, that was 115, 120 years ago that they did that. And you're telling me that we haven't advanced any farther? Look at computer technology. 10 years ago, cell phones were these giant bricks, and they've advanced to touch screens, and God, they're so advanced now. Like the natural rate of technological progression should be exponential. And with everything, I guess we could say all the technologies they can use to control us and make a buck off us, yeah, they've grown exponential, but they've purposefully held back certain technologies in the realm of free energy and electrogravitics and all this stuff. Anything that could basically decentralize everything and free us, they've held that back in their projects. And it's not even really been linear. It's been this flat line with airplanes and rockets and all this stuff, these glorified bullets. So it's really time to redo our understanding of science and understand how much we've been misled. People think the news is fake. Try science. Try stuff that comes from our education institutions, physics, medicine, really anything. That's going to be the next step, really, after people really wake up to the news being fake, is what's been coming from these universities for all these years. And we have to just scrub our subconscious of what we think about black holes and dark matter and gravity and all this stuff, and sort of research deeper into it.
So do you think some of these UFOs that people are seeing and the Air Force puts out there, do you think this is some of the technology that they're testing or have been using?
Yes, I personally think quite a few UFO sightings people see, I'm not saying all of them, but quite a few that people see are probably some form of our craft, being an exotic, man-made craft that's just been kept secret, and not people don't really know about it. Now, that's not to say all UFOs are that. Some could be theirs, or a craft of another civilization that's phasing in and out or something like that. But I do think quite a few are ours. Now, I want to make one note about videos you see on the internet. A lot of people ask me about certain videos, and I see a lot of them, and there are a lot of CGI videos. And, I wouldn't even doubt if there's some Photoshopped or CGI stuff that's come out of NASA too. But a lot of stuff we do see is Photoshopped. Doesn't mean it all is. And though once you do get into, okay, this one's real, this sighting or this video, and we can confirm it wasn't swamp gas, or it's not a drone, or it's not, whatever they try to play it off as being, it is a legitimate unidentified something, or I guess unexplained aerial phenomena, as they're trying to sell it these days. And is it ours or theirs? That's sort of the question.
So do you think with Trump creating this Space Force, they're getting ready and prepared to, let the information out that there are other life forms, that there are UFOs that have been visiting the Earth?
Yes, that's definitely, I believe, one stage in the process. And on one hand, they've already been doing that through Q, letting us know through drops on that official sort of information dissemination program that ETs exist, space programs exist outside of the public domain. It's of the highest classification. And they've also been letting us know that a lot of this mainstream publicity that we're seeing about certain UFO information, or certain, I guess, UFO people or talking heads, is sort of a distraction. And absolutely, the Space Force then, you see a lot of these videos, I guess, on the YouTube channel and Twitter these days. And when people do get a video, maybe it's from the International Space Station and somebody, forgot to turn it off when they went on a bathroom break, or whether it's somebody with a handheld camera. A lot of people speculate, is this the Space Force? And that's actually fantastic. That's great that people are thinking that way. And one reason they created a new military branch was to get people thinking like that, outside of the box. Like, wow, is this something that they've been keeping secret that, is doable now? Because when people think Air Force, they're still thinking wings. They're still thinking rockets. They're not thinking outside of that box. So just the idea of the Space Force, boom, that impact on the public consciousness really gets people at least able to accept certain ideas and beliefs, not necessarily fully, but at least entertain them. And it's been beautiful to see, really.
Do you think that with the Space Force, and I'm talking about like the private space, not NASA or anything like that, the
Lockheed and Boeing,
do you think
Northrop, whatever they have?
Do you think that with whatever they're developing, the technology that we don't see, do you think we've been back and forth to the moon?
Personally, I would say yes. I don't know for certain, of course, but putting all the evidence together, there are people who have photographed structures on the moon that are completely anomalous. It look like some sort of, power generator out of Star Wars and things like that. And these are professional photographic analyzers that look at these things and see these structures. And then there's been NASA photographs that have been brought to the public, whether accidentally put out by NASA or leaked purposely, who knows. But you do see different structures and things there. They may be ancient, but some could be new. And with the technology that's possible, going back into history, we can point back to the 50s and 60s when there was a huge spell of UFO sightings in America that were flying disc shaped. And then that hit the public consciousness, became sort of a, I guess, through the propaganda in Hollywood, ridiculed and laughed off. But there was a huge rash of sightings for decades of silver saucers. Now, the CIA and the Air Force, they played it off as, of course, again, the swamp gas, or they let people think that they're extraterrestrial. Okay, let them believe it's ET, because what if it was actually theirs? What if they were working on these saucers, or alien reproduction vehicles, as I believe Mark McCandlish calls them? He was an Air Force designer who had heard a lot of things about these projects, and one of these particular reverse engineered craft that person he met allegedly saw, and he drew designs based off people's testimony of this alien reproduction vehicle, as he called it. But the testimony and the evidence shows that these could have been initially built around the 50s and 60s. They tried experimenting with a lot of these technologies they classified from Tesla and Townsend Brown and Victor Schauberger is another name, and many other sources, and possibly even research that they acquired from the Nazis post-World War II. But anyway, totally, 50s and 60s, they began prototyping it, developing it, and of course they don't know what the heck's going on because a lot of these scientists are still stuck in standard model Fantasyland physics, but they're trying to grasp this sort of, I guess we could call it real, but it's the true physics, and it's very tough trying to navigate between the two. But they were doing that in the 50s and 60s, and then expanded out to 70s and 80s. They're bringing in billions and more dollars into those projects, continuing to research and development. What secret facilities are they making in their deep underground military bases, and maybe on other continents in the South Pole, or even out to the moon? What if they were able to perfect the technology enough to fly to the moon in 5 to 10 minutes using electroplasma based propulsion technologies and inertial shielding? I find it absolutely possible that they've been to the moon. I wouldn't doubt if there was some projects or craft that had explored to Mars already within the last few decades, and they just kept that secret, maybe even beyond. Of course, we can't say for sure, but it's just about finding the evidence wherever it may be and putting it together.
We're talking about, going to the moon and spaceships and other technologies. And if we bring it back just to energy, when we look at like electricity and batteries here on Earth, it's odd that we're still using the same technology to produce electric, to create batteries. And that hasn't changed for, 80, 90 years or so. That hasn't really changed at all. It's actually pretty much the same. And we know that Tesla's been doing a lot of work. You mentioned Tesla before. They raided his research facility. They took everything that Tesla had. And I know there's many others out there that had information. Do you think they're hiding different types of energy sources and trying to control the people with just this one type of energy that we use today, which is AC current, electric, and the same batteries, the same everything? Nothing's really changed.
Yeah, I do believe the black suits have shut down many a free energy inventor and researchers throughout the decades. And sort of like you mentioned earlier with rocket technology still being decades old, but the bells and whistles have improved a little bit, but it's still the foundation of the propulsion mechanisms were built nearly 100 years ago. Same thing with energy. And it's the energy that's let out to the public, the energy creation mechanisms, whether it be geothermal or hydroelectric or wind energy or even the nuclear fusion. Even the new nuclear fusion they're selling, I don't know what it's called, fusion or fission, or, there's some sort of, I guess, advanced fusion they're trying to sell to the public now through the universities that's, doesn't produce nuclear waste, but it's going to bring us unlimited electricity. I think it's the hot fusion. It's still all centralized, and it's been centralized because they can make a buck off it, make us pay for it. They put the money into the lines for the electric grid, and even if it's wind energy or whatever these quote alternative energies they're trying to throw into the Green New Deal, it's still all expensive as crap. They still have to mine the lithium and other metals for the batteries. They still have to build these giant fans that just look ugly on the countryside, and it's still all centralized, even if it's quote alternative. So what they've kept secret is anything that's decentralized, anything that you could run and you wouldn't have to plug it in or fill it up or pay out the ass just to run. So whether that be a car that runs on water, plenty of researchers over the years have been shut down for figuring out how to create a ton of electricity from just hydrogen and then run your car on water. Get hundreds of miles just to a gallon of distilled water.
Wow.
What was that Steyer? No, not Steyer. Oh gosh, what was his name in the 80s and 90s who became really popular for it, and then he was basically poisoned to death?
I don't know.
It's not coming to me right now. But anyway, yeah, there's been plenty of inventors over the years that have been shut down even for that. And then there's been others that have actually built different coils and even setups with crystals involved where they've been able to get some sort of resonance created where they tap into that ether, as many scientists have called it, as Tesla called it, that ether, that 0 point field. There's some sort of field that connects everything, that connects us all, and that connects all space and time. And through some sort of using electromagnetism and using particular geometries and creating these coils, they've been able to tap into that. And there's been shoebox-sized devices that could power your home, power a whole grid of homes for essentially forever with very little, basically no moving parts, so very little upkeep, and it's decentralized. You don't have to pay anybody for it. I don't like to call it free energy because it's not free. You have to put some money into of course, the research and development and minimal upkeep, but you're getting over unity electricity, more electricity from the system than it takes to run it. So essentially free energy, and many ways to do it. Some devices, like I was explaining earlier, have propulsion go hand in hand with the energy, not really creation mechanism, but pulling in the drawing in mechanism of the energy. And no doubt, all of these sciences and technologies have been suppressed by the deep state, the military-industrial complex for a long time. But thank God, thank all of us, really, the patriots behind the scenes and all of us that do the media work for changing this paradigm and getting the Great Awakening going and actually being able to bring out, creating an avenue where we're educating the public now. And very soon, I think they're going to start rolling out these technologies and might call them quantum energy technologies or quantum propulsion. They'll use some sort of, buzzword to sell it to the public, but that's how they're going to slowly start disclosing these things. We see how there's the Navy patents that have been filed that have drawn some media attention, right? So, because an actual Navy inventor filed a patent in recent years for what looks like to be a triangular shaped anti-gravity craft or UFO. Right. And the Navy lawyers even said, nope, we can basically say without saying, we can't say because it's classified, but this technology exists. And, we haven't even talked about China and sort of the intelligence stealing that they've been doing in their own, I guess, secret space programs that they've been trying to work on. But yeah, we have these sort of adversaries and we got to get this going. And of course, the CIA is trying to pull out some, I guess, PSYOP disclosures to distract and confuse everybody. So I think the White Hats, the Patriots, are definitely setting things in motion, even though it might not look like it directly. We still have cars that run on gas, sure. We still have these cell phones we have to plug in. But give it 5 years, this is going to be a completely different conversation. And I think we're going to say, wow, things changed truly like that.
Why do you think they kept this from us? What was their motivation from keeping this technology, space, all from the people? What's their motivation for all of this?
The motivation by the elite of this planet, I guess we could say the deep state, would be, of course, power and control, as their motivation always is, the sociopaths and crazy psychopaths. So with that energy technology out into the public domain, there goes trillion-dollar industries. With the sort of medical technologies even that they developed in the black projects, that gets out, there's trillions of dollars in industries that's gone. When it comes to, all the different mining and things like that just everything changes. And then our social understanding and our religious and spiritual understandings, those also change as well drastically. And when we get into the idea of, wow, these other civilizations that are out there and how do we protect ourselves spiritually and psychically against the negative entities or civilizations that would be out in the cosmos, and how do we learn to become partners with the benevolent ones? A lot of these questions come into play, and no doubt they just want to ridicule these ideas out of everybody's minds, make them not even want to think about it, or scare them. There's a lot of fear porn that's come out of Hollywood in media over the last 50 years that makes people absolutely terrified of these subjects, and they don't even want to get into it, or they think it's, whatever the case. They've done a number on us, and there's been a myriad of ways that they have sanitized these things and kept them secret and suppressed people out of it. I often tell people, if you think the Clinton body count is long, try the free energy inventor body count or the holistic doctor body count or something like that. So, and of course, anything that takes power and control out of elite hands and brings it to the public for freedom, for truth, for unity, they're not going to have.
So what do you think is coming in the next 5 years? You mentioned 5 years. What do you think they're going to release first?
Oh, man. So if I'm going to get into pure speculation mode here really quick, I think through 2020 here, up until election time, we're going to see a lot of weird science, weird UFO, weird alien things hit the media. And it's going to be a lot of gaslighting, a lot of half-truths, and a lot of contradictory statements too. And I think they might try to pull that UFO card as something, maybe they'll try to gain some attention towards a particular Democratic nominee, like maybe even Bernie Sanders will try to go, oh yeah, I'll disclose the UFO files, vote for me, or something like that, like they try to do with Hillary. Because we are seeing a lot of course, fake news media being activated to share these sorts of stories. We haven't even gotten into, the basics of that here. But over the last 2.5 years since the New York Times really started it, and it spread around, of course, Politico and WAPO and all the media, fake media, they've been trying to distract us with these UFO stories, and they're trying to politicize it, I'm noticing, because even in the subculture, even in the UFO conferences and sort of the conspiracy circles and networks that follow UFOs, there's been a lot of controlled opposition there that's been trying to legitimize UFOs, but at the same time sort of shun like QAnon and other deeper conspiracy theories. They go, oh, there's no deep state there, but UFOs are real, and it's like, what the heck's going on with you? But there is a massive play that I believe is going on to sort of whitewash the truth-seeking movement, sort of bring in these UFO disclosure gatekeepers. I guess we could call them disclosure managers. And I think that's really going to get more attention and get more publicity through 2020 here. But of course, I basically believe it's a lock for Trump to win the election this year. And then getting into the next few years, term 2 of POTUS is going to be really where I think a lot of the hands-on work begins, and a lot of the stuff, the flood just starts to happen. And once the swamp is drained, it's going to allow for a lot more of this, the deep information and the true information to come out and just really blow people away. So that's what I foresee over the next sort of 5 years. Once you get to 5, though, that brings into question who's going to be the next president, and then what's going to happen with that, which I can't even get into speculating there. But that's sort of what I'm seeing with this year and then next few.
Is Trump and his administration, are they going to reveal that there are extraterrestrial beings? Do you think in his next term, do you think he'll go that far?
A lot of people, when it comes to the capital D disclosure, where people expect, oh yeah, the president's just going to get into the UFO files and disclose it, and that's going to be that. I don't know. I really can't say. It is impressive to me, actually, that they decided to delve into that with Q, talk about Project Looking Glass, talk about space programs, ETs, things like that. But it's so crazy, truly, of a topic that I don't know if the mainstream public can handle it even within the next few years. And the true truths that come with it, not the half truths, but the more full disclosure, really can't say. But I am noticing, and it is impressive to me to see the engagement that certain posts and tweets and videos get on the internet when it comes to extraterrestrial life and these sorts of technologies. Because of course it's the biggest questions of our time, and it's incredibly fascinating. But the deepest aspects of it, I don't know. I can't say.
Okay. Jordan, thank you very much for being on the X22 Report Spotlight. Once again, how can people see your work?
People can find my work, jordansather.com, Twitter, Jordan_Sather_, or YouTube, Destroying the Illusion.